Russian propagandist and Z-volunteer Tatyana Montyan told about a telling incident that highlights the chaos and moral decline in the Russian troops. According to her, Russian soldiers with weapons were forced to fight off their own Niva from the military police. Read ordinary military men who have several hundred subscribers. They write the whole truth. I published about the consequences of the wise order that all cars, even those bought with their own money, should be donated to the Russian Defense Ministry. That is, put on black numbers. And the military police took away some guy's unfortunate Niva. They came with machine guns and started a showdown. It is not clear where it was, how it was, but they took their Niva away from the military police. And there are many such cases. Montyan said the incident occurred after an order was introduced, according to which all cars, even those purchased with personal funds, must be transferred to the disposal of the Russian Ministry of Defense with so-called black numbers, while Z-volunteers pretend that they are buying some kind of transport for the front, which no one at the front has ever seen. People are buying some Nivas for themselves for their last pennies, so that they can at least somehow transport ammunition, evacuate the wounded. Someone issues a wise order that these people must donate their car to the Ministry of Defense. Montyan is indignant. She also notes that if military personnel refuse to do this, their cars are taken away by the military police. Such stories, according to her, have long ceased to be isolated, and it's impossible to hide it anymore, she admits. The situation with the Niva, seized and returned with the use of weapons, is not just an isolated case. It is a symptom. An army in which the military police take away soldiers' personal cars, and in response they take up machine guns, is a system in which discipline, logistics, and supplies have been completely destroyed. The fact that Russia cannot provide its army with even basic equipment, such as civilian SUVs, speaks of the profound degradation of its defense potential.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said on Friday that the latest European Union sanctions package was part of the bloc's consistent anti-Russian stance. According to Associated Press during a conference call with journalists, he added that Russia considered such unilateral restrictions unlawful. Earlier in the day, the EU approved a new raft of sanctions against Russia over its conflict in Ukraine, including a lower oil price cap, a ban on transactions with Nord Stream gas pipelines, and the targeting of more shadow fleet ships. The 27 EU member countries decided to set the oil price per barrel at just under $48, down from a previous cap of $60. Oil income is the linchpin of Russia's economy, allowing President Vladimir Putin to pour money into the armed forces without worsening inflation for everyday people and avoiding a currency collapse. A new import ban was also imposed in an attempt to close a loophole allowing Russia to indirectly export crude oil via a number of non-EU countries.
Пока мы видим достаточно такую последовательную антироссийскую линию Европы, мы неоднократно говорили, что мы считаем подобные односторонние ограничения незаконными. Мы выступаем против них. Но вместе с тем, конечно же, мы уже от санкций обрели определенный иммунитет. Мы адаптировались к жизни в условиях санкций. Безусловно, предстоит проанализировать новый пакет с тем, чтобы минимизировать его последствия. Но, кроме того, каждый новый пакет добавляет негативного эффекта для самих тех стран, которые к нему присоединяются. Это оружие обоюдоострое. Это позитивный сигнал, и здесь мы абсолютно согласны. Действительно, мы тоже являемся сторонниками того, чтобы добавить динамики переговорному процессу.
Russian propaganda is no longer able to hide the failure. The Russian army's offensive in the Sumy region has stalled, and the losses have been so serious that Z channels have started talking about it openly. Thus, the propaganda channel Northern Channel, associated with the Russian armed forces, published a post in which it described in detail the defeat of Russian units in this section of the front. The elimination by the Ukrainian Defense Forces of the command of the 155th Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces, which was operating in this direction, completely demoralized the group. The 30th Motorized Rifle Regiment of the Russian Armed Forces continues to be in a less than ideal position in Kondratovka. The 177th Regiment and the 40th Brigade have been wiped out almost completely. The other day, part of the 177th refused to go to the combat mission. The 155th cannot take control of the unfortunate village. One company has been lost. The 810th Marine Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces is the most combat-ready, but it is rushing head-on, and there is an excellent chance of losing it, the authors of Z-Channel report. According to them, the situation has become much more complicated due to the new commander of the 155th Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces, Sukrab Akhmedov, nicknamed Bucha. He is known as a commander who sends soldiers into senseless and bloody attacks, regardless of losses. The offensive, which was intended as a show of force, turned into an ignominious failure. Ukraine, despite constant pressure, continues to successfully contain the enemy and deal him heavy blows. Like many Ukrainian cities, Sumy has been scarred by war. It saw heavy fighting early in the full-scale invasion and has, in the last year, become a frequent target of Russian drones, missiles, and guided bombs. Now, Ukraine's top general, Alexander Syrsky, says at least 50,000 Russian troops have massed on the other side of the border, though Ukraine has so far managed to thwart them. The region of Sumy borders Russia's Kursk region. Last summer, Ukraine launched a surprise incursion into Kursk. The operation was intended to distract Russia and pull Russian troops from vulnerable sections of the eastern front line. As Russian troops slowly clawed back most of Kursk, attacks on Sumy and its regional capital, Sumy City, increased. The F-16 fighters received from partners are used at 2/3 of their capacity. This was stated on air by aviation expert Valery Romanenko on the Fabrika Novosti channel. We received a small number of them, so we use them to perform a limited number of tasks, somewhere at 2/3 of their capabilities, he emphasized. According to him, F-16s are used where they are effective primarily for air defense. They have the best radars that see well against the background of the Earth. They have missiles, at the same time short-range missiles, cheap and old models, which are more than enough to destroy Russian cruise missiles. They have guns that can hit the Shaheds if they rise to an altitude of 3,000 meters. It makes sense to use these planes there, because there is no danger of losing speed, colliding with the ground, falling, Romanenko said. According to him, Russian Shaheds cannot reach mobile groups at such high altitudes, but they are clearly visible to the aircraft's radars and there is less danger for fighters to shoot them down. He added that at low altitude, when the fighter reduces its speed, since the Shahed has a maximum of 200 kilometers per hour and the fighter's minimum during an attack is 400 kilometers per hour, the plane will simply fall. I don't rule out that we could have had such cases once or twice, the aviation expert said. Romanenko notes that the second task of the F-16 is to suppress enemy air defenses during the launch of air missiles and drones. According to him, these fighters can operate anti-radar missiles, and this is much more effective than the use of harm from our aircraft. Because there may be additional target designation during the missile's flight and a high probability of hitting Russian radars if harm anti-radar missiles are used from the F-16, he emphasized. The aviation expert emphasized that the third advantage of these fighters is that they have an effective onboard defense system. Romanenko noted, "There have been no cases yet of them being shot down by the Russians. Therefore, they are capable of carrying out limited strikes with cruise bombs on Russian positions on the front lines, so as not to receive a missile from Russian anti-aircraft systems themselves and not to expose themselves to a Russian fighter. It is important not to approach circular zones where, if a missile is launched, you will not be able to go out of it, because you will be shot down. If you do not approach such zones, then you can hit concentrations of Russian troops." He said that, unfortunately, due to the insufficient range of the missiles that we received for this fighter, and due to the generally short range of the radar, using them for air combat with Russian fighters is not effective, because they have no advantages and are inferior to the Russians in detection range and firing range, although they have a better onboard defense system that is capable of deflecting Russian missiles.